Hi everyone. I'm the director for our New Zealand registered charitable trust called Common Knowledge. And I've been the director since the 1990s. And I got COVID in 2020. When I got COVID, I then wrote this way of self-help. And there you go. So as soon as I got sick, I started to use these self-help skills because the medical profession didn't have a bloody clue what to do, and it still doesn't. They've been heroic in trying to stop people from dying. And I haven't done a video for quite a while because I haven't figured out what to do with the fact that social media is so rapid. I did a number of videos when there seemed to be the same groups of people and different sites, and now there are different people, and everybody's moving through these social media sites so rapidly. And there's no way really to coalesce around what's working, what isn't working. Many people want desperately to be diagnosed, and they desperately want to be cured, and they desperately want to be fixed, and they're willing to take all sorts of medications to do that. Others are just as desperate, and they're also looking at self-help. Our trust, Common Knowledge, believes that you should be able to use any and all types of healthcare as suits you. And that's what I did. I knew that the medical profession couldn't do anything at that time. I wasn't sick enough to go into the hospital, although from day 17 to 21, I almost did because I started to get that oppressed breathing and that panicky feeling. But I used a lot of self-help, and some of this is just easy to use because if we act really quickly with this virus, then we may be able to reduce the load in our system, which would help us to continue to fight it. But here you are, as I was, and still am periodically with long haul symptoms. And honestly, you hate it. And what you don't fully appreciate, and I'm just going to keep saying it over and over again, you have been traumatized. We had this new thing come into our body that our body has never recognized before, and our body has done a gallant effort to try to deal with it, and it has had a huge impact on us. We are traumatized, and you have to recognize this as a trauma. And if you recognize it as a trauma, then one is Google exists, YouTube exists. Start to look at what the stages are of helping yourself come out of a trauma. It's multi-pronged. If you go to a therapist and talk about your anxiety and how you feel depressed and feel anxious, they may give you medications to reduce that anxiety. If you go to a cardiologist because your heart rate's elevating, they may put you on a beta blocker. It's an antidepressant for your heart. That's your choice. However, you have to keep going forward from this trauma. There are people all over the world who have suffered traumas so much worse than this. It does not take away from the fact that you have been traumatized. And how do you approach trauma? Well, Google that. Find out. Share those skills. First is just acknowledge that you've been traumatized. And when you're traumatized, when anybody's traumatized, several things happen. One is our sympathetic, our fright, flight, fight, freeze nervous system just gets super activated. On top of the fact that that same nervous system gets activated because we have this virus in our body, in our immune systems trying to deal with it. So we get very tense in our body, in our mind, and our emotion. And recognize the disorientation. Even if you had just had the flu and you got sick, those first few days when you feel terrible, you're very disoriented. Doesn't mean that your mind isn't working, doesn't mean you don't know where you are. It means you don't know what to do. And most of the time we just freeze, fright, flight, fight, or freeze. We go to bed. We curl up in a ball. So the first thing to recognize is that you're very disoriented. And it takes a while living with that disorientation to start to put sense to things. Part of putting sense to things is really beginning to look at what are the symptoms you're having, and also whether that symptom is going to lead you to death. And that's the gift of fear. If we're just afraid and we do not know how to use fear as a gift, then it's very hard to make decisions. So why is fear a gift? Because it causes us to be observant. So any of the symptoms you have, when you experience that symptom and you use the gift of fear, be observant and then ask yourself this question. This symptom that I don't like, that I hate, that is really bothering me, am I going to be dead in 5 minutes from it? I'm serious. If the answer is yes, get immediate help or do something immediately. If it's not 5 minutes, is it going to be 12 hours? If you have tachycardia, you get up and you have a thing here and it goes, okay, my heart rate's 70 beats a minute. That's fine. And I get up and I go to the toilet and my heart rate's 135 beats a minute. Oh my God, I have tachycardia. Do you think you're going to be dead in 12 hours? If so, get help. And do some research. Just because your heart rate is elevating, it doesn't mean you're going to be dead. And it doesn't even mean it's a serious problem. It can be a transient problem while your body's still trying to deal with this new virus. So I'm 77. Okay. So when I exercise, when I go running, I'm very fit, my heart rate goes up to 165 beats a minute. I don't consider that to be tachycardia. My heart rate's normally around 55. So it's more than tripling. So we have to have a relative understanding of symptoms. So every symptom you have, use the gift of fear. Am I going to be dead in 5 minutes from this? Am I going to be dead in 12 hours? And if the answer is yes, get help or do something. And if the answer is no, then you know you're having an episode. So what is the present research and thinking about long haul? Well, and this makes sense. Either pockets of virus are still in us. Some viruses do that. Chickenpox. So let me ask you, how many of you have seen the advertisement for getting a vaccine for herpes, the shingles, that comes from chickenpox virus? I see that ad all the time on TV. How many people who are anti-vaxxers would go get a vaccine for shingles? Probably quite a few, without thinking about it. So it is very possible that this virus lives in pockets in us. And when our immune system, when we get tired or we get stressed, that virus becomes active again at some low level, chronic not feeling well. That's highly possible, highly probable. Another is that this virus damages the inside lining, the endothelia of our arteries particularly. And that's obvious. You get COVID fingers or COVID toes. People get other bruising on their body. That's a leakage of the cardiovascular system. So that takes time to heal. We can help it heal by creating nitric oxide. And that's in some of the other videos. Or look on YouTube for nitric oxide production and humming. And the third way it might affect us, which we all know, is that we get an overactive immune system. We get these immune rushes. They can be emotional rushes. Oh, I'm going to cry. That's a rush, an autoimmune rush. I'm frightened, panic attack. That's an autoimmune rush. I suddenly itch all over my body. That's an autoimmune rush. My hair's falling out. That's an autoimmune rush. I felt fine for a while. Now I feel terrible. That's an autoimmune rush. When we know it's an autoimmune rush, then we can do things for ourselves that decrease the intensity of those feelings and shorten the episode of them. That's called self-help. And we can go to the doctors and get medications that just numb us. So people with tachycardia get put on a beta blocker, their heart can't go up. So you have to decide about your health care. What I want you to know from this video is that you have been traumatized. And when you read the description, how long does it recover? How long does it take anyone to recover from a trauma? It takes a while. But the first part of trauma is this huge disorientation that goes on. What is happening? Nothing is like what it was. And when we live forward from a trauma, we never go back. There is no going back from a big trauma. It is always part of our lives. We go forward and we become something different than what we were. Some people, as they recover and as they live forward in trauma, they feel that it's the best thing that ever happened to them, as sad as that may sound, because it made them a better person, whatever that meant to them. Other people curl up in a ball and never live their life again. Who are you going to be? I know what I chose. I worked every day, every minute of the day, every minute of every hour of the day to do my best to activate my parasympathetic nervous system, that calm part of me. I did it through multiple skills, from brain waves, lots of them on YouTube, my goodness, binaural brain waves. Play around with the different brain waves and different frequencies. See what helps you feel good. I use a lot of homeopathics. I use a lot of supplements, specific ones. I just don't take things randomly. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't be taking vitamins every day. If you take them once a week, that's sufficient. But you need to know why you're taking them, not just taking them. If you want to change your diet, that's up to you. I happen to have a genetic metabolic disorder. It doesn't matter what I eat, I still have a problem. So diets over a long period of time. So when you look to recover from trauma, it can be moment to moment, micro short time. It can be a short time. How did I get through my day? How did I get through my week? It can be a medium time. How do I feel at the end of this month compared to how I felt at the beginning of the month? Or long term, how am I 6 months from now or further out the line? It takes time. We have been traumatized. This has been a traumatic experience. Now, what would have happened? Just let me ask you some questions. What would have happened if we had lived where there was no medical care? How many more people would have died? Heaps. What would have happened if this had affected children under 12 and not older people? Depending on what country you're in, if you lived in the United States, 600,000 children under 12 had died. What would people be doing? It's trauma. What's it been like to lose a job during this? It's traumatic. If you live in a country where the government has helped people out, be bloody grateful. You could live in a country where there's no way that you get helped out. And not only did COVID ravage your family or your community, but you're in the middle of a drought. This has been a year of trauma. You have a choice. We're the first group of people with long-haul COVID, and you have a choice. You can find ways to recover and become a bigger, broader, better, more compassionate, more empathetic, more skilled person. Or you can feel bitchy and whiny and cranky and entitled that this happened to you and nobody can fix it and cure it. That's going to be up to you. That's going to be up to you. I can't change what happened to you. I couldn't change what happened to me. I've lived a very healthy life. I got COVID. Right? Didn't like it. I felt scared a lot. I was living an hour from the nearest hospital. COVID was very new in New Zealand. It wasn't clear what to do about it. So I took care of myself. Was it scary? Yep. But I did have skills. And that is what's going to help you recover from trauma, is we start putting skills in place little by little. And every little bit helps. If you use meditation, if you use breathing skills, if you use laughter yoga and laugh your way to wellness, if you learn to take micro naps, if you learn to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system by just reminding yourself, calm down, however you do it. There are so many ways to health and wellness. If you do something, it should feel good. If you're working specifically to reduce the intensity of episodes or symptoms, you should recognize that right away, or you're not doing the right thing. What happens when you have to investigate multiple things to do for yourself? You become a better person, a more capable person, a more skilled person, but always connected to knowing that what you're doing is making a difference. Don't do it just randomly, because then you aren't growing. You're just flooding your body with more stuff that your body's trying to deal with. So I'll probably start doing more videos again, because the new groups of people, similar complaints, but we're now down the road and we now have more vaccinated people. So what's happening with vaccinated people? Their symptoms are going away. Will they stay away or come back? What happens when you get symptoms from being vaccinated? These are all questions that we get to explore together. And I'm more than happy to explore them, because I find this absolutely fascinating. Fascination doesn't mean that I love it. It just means I'm willing to engage. And I hope to inspire you to engage as well. There are 1,001 ways to skin a cat. Took Edison 5,000 efforts to make a light bulb. Gee whiz. We should be able to do lots of stuff for ourselves and then spread the messages of those things. Okay, guys. See you later.